You did not lose them. I moved them. Sit with that for a moment before you read another word, because the distinction matters more than you realize, and the confusion between those two things, loss versus divine removal, is the very thing that has kept you grieving what you should have been grateful for. You have been mourning a departure that I orchestrated. You have been trying to make sense of an ending that I authored. You have been replaying conversations, analyzing interactions, searching your own behavior for the reason something or someone exited your life, when the reason was never about your behavior at all. The reason was simple. The reason was sovereign. They were in a position that required my attention, and I gave it. They were standing in a place I needed cleared, and I cleared it. They thought they were simply moving on, moving away, or in some cases deliberately moving against you. But what they could not perceive, what they had no framework to understand, is that they were not making a free and independent decision. They were being moved by hands they cannot see, by the God they cannot outmaneuver, by the one who loved you enough to look at what was in your path and say, "Not on my watch, not this one, not my child. I remove them, and I need you to stop calling it a loss." This message is not for everyone who will encounter it. It is precision targeted, spiritually dispatched, and placed before your eyes at this exact moment, because you have been carrying the weight of something you were never meant to carry, the grief of removal you interpreted as rejection. Everything I am about to speak to you today is designed to dismantle that misinterpretation from its root and replace it with a truth so solid, so specific, so unmistakably mine that the enemy will not be able to rebuild the lie once I have torn it down. Stay with every word. What I am about to reveal will reorganize the way you understand your entire recent history. Say amen if you believe God has been protecting you from things you could not see clearly enough to protect yourself from. My precious child, I want to take you back to before the removal happened, before the shift in the relationship, before the door closed, before the person stepped back or was stepped away, before the situation changed in a way you did not choose and did not fully understand. I want to take you back to that earlier season, because there are things you did not notice then that I need you to see now with the clarity of hindsight illuminated by my spirit. Do you remember the unease? The subtle but persistent sense that something was not adding up, that the alignment you were hoping for never quite settled, that for all the investment you made, emotional, relational, spiritual, sometimes financial, there was always a gap between what was given and what was received? Do you remember the prayers you prayed over that person or situation that never seemed to land with the peace that genuine answers from me produce? You prayed, but something in your spirit remained unsettled. You tried to convince yourself the unsettledness was your own insecurity, your own trust issues, your own inability to fully receive good things. But it was not. That was me. That was a discernment I placed inside you, whispering what your hope was not yet ready to hear. Something is wrong here. This is not what it appears to be. This is not where I am taking you. You did not listen fully, and I do not say that to shame you. I say it so you will understand something important. I know how hard it is to hear the warning voice when the hoping voice is louder. I know how difficult it is to pull back from something you have already invested in, already built your expectations around, already introduced into the architecture of your plans. I know that letting go of something you wanted requires a grief all its own even before the loss is official. So I did not wait for you to find the strength to let go on your own. I did not stand back and watch you continue walking into something I already knew would cost you more than it was ever going to give you. I did not leave the removal entirely in your hands, knowing your hands were already full of hope. I intervened. I reached into the situation with my sovereign authority, which operates completely independently of anyone's willingness or cooperation, and I began to move what needed to be moved. Some of them felt it without understanding it. A sudden distance they could not quite explain, a shift in their own desires that redirected them away from you, a door closing in their own life that rerouted their path. They thought they were following their own instincts. They were following my instruction without knowing whose instruction it was. And some of them were deliberate. Some of them knew exactly what they were doing when they moved against you. They were not passive obstacles. They were active oppositions. They saw what you were building, what you were becoming, where you were heading, and something in them, driven by insecurity or jealousy or the direct influence of a spiritual assignment against your destiny, determined that you should not get there. They worked quietly, some of them with great patience and great subtlety. They positioned themselves close enough to influence, but maintained just enough plausible deniability to avoid direct confrontation. They did not oppose you loudly, because loud opposition can be identified and addressed. They oppose you quietly, through the withholding of support at critical moments, through the steady, almost imperceptible undermining of your confidence, through strategic alliances with others who also had no investment in your flourishing, through the slow, consistent draining of your energy in exchanges that always seemed to cost you more than they returned. They were careful, they were patient, and they were absolutely confident that they had found a position in your life secure enough to operate from indefinitely. They did not account for me. My child, I need you to understand the authority I carry when it comes to people and structures that surround my children. I do not observe from a distance with interest, but without involvement. I am actively, perpetually, sovereignly engaged in construction and maintenance of the environment your destiny requires. And when someone or something lodges itself in that environment in a way that contradicts what I designed for you, I do not send gentle suggestions. I do not wait for you to figure it out and handle it yourself. I move.
Sometimes quietly, sometimes suddenly, sometimes in ways that look to the outside world like natural circumstances. A disagreement, a change of season, a professional shift, a growing incompatibility. But beneath every natural-looking removal is my hand, making the adjustment that my love for you and my commitment to your destiny required. They tried to block you. I removed them. And now I need to tell you what they were actually blocking, because understanding that will transform your grief into gratitude more completely than anything else I could say. Comment, God, you see what I cannot see. If you are beginning to understand that what you lost was never meant to stay. What they were blocking was not small. If it had been small, I would not have needed to move in the way I did. The size of the removal tells you something about the size of what was being blocked. I do not use sovereign intervention to protect minor conveniences. I use it to protect major destinies. What was being blocked in your situation was not a single opportunity, not a single blessing, not a single door. What was being blocked was an entire season of forward movement. An entire dimension of what I have prepared for your life. There are specific people I have been arranging to bring into your world who could not enter while that position was occupied. There are specific doors I have been preparing to open that required the previous structure to shift before the new one could be revealed. There are aspects of your character, your calling, and your capacity that could not develop in the presence of what was holding you in place. The removal did not just create a gap. It created a corridor. A clear, unobstructed passageway into the next dimension of what I have been building for your life since before you were born. I need you to look at the space left by what was removed differently than you have been looking at it. You have been looking at it as an absence, a wound, evidence of something that went wrong in your story. I need you to begin looking at it as a prepared opening. A cleared space. A room that has been deliberately emptied to make way for what is coming to fill it. Empty spaces in my economy are never permanent vacuums. They are temporary clearances. I do not remove things from your life and leave you with nothing. I remove things that were blocking better things, and then I release the better things into the space the removal created. The absence you have been grieving is not the end of the story. It is the space between chapters. And what I am writing into the next chapter requires the space to be exactly as clear as it now is. My beloved, I want to address the shame that has wrapped itself around this experience for some of you. Because the removal did not happen in a vacuum. It happened in the context of a community, a social world, people who watched and formed opinions and in some cases spoke those opinions out loud. And for some of you, the most painful thing about the removal has not been the loss of the person or the situation itself. It has been the narrative that formed around it. The story other people told about what happened. The version of events that circulated without your input, that positioned you as the problem, that cast the removal in a light that reflected poorly on you while the person I removed walked away looking unaffected or even sympathetic. You know the truth of what happened. But you also know what the public narrative became. And the distance between those two things has been a source of pain that goes beyond the original wound. Hear me on this very carefully. I am the God of truth and I am the God of time. Both of those things work in your favor in this situation. The truth of what happened, what was done against you, what was operated in secret, what positioned itself against your forward movement, that truth is not buried permanently. I am the one who brings hidden things to light, and I do it not on the timeline of human gossip but on the timeline of divine justice. What the narrative made you look like in this season is not what history will record. History is written by the one who controls time, and I am writing your story from a perspective that no current narrative can reach. The people who formed opinions based on incomplete information will, in many cases, receive the rest of the story in a way and at a time that I determine is most useful for your vindication and your testimony. You do not need to defend yourself loudly. You do not need to correct every wrong account that circulates. I am more effective at vindication than you are at self-defense. Let me handle the reputation. Give your energy to the forward movement. Please support our channel because the sole reason these messages exist is to reach the person who is sitting in a painful, confusing, spiritually disorienting season and to remind them that God has been in control of every detail they have been struggling to make sense of. If this word is bringing clarity to something that has confused you, please consider expressing your support through the Super Thanks button below. And if you are not yet part of our community, subscribe so that the next message I have prepared for you finds you ready and waiting. My child, I must speak now to the spiritual dimension of what tried to block you, because what you experienced was not merely human. There are people who act as unwitting instruments of a spiritual assignment without ever consciously agreeing to that assignment. They are not sitting in a room pledging to oppose your destiny. They are simply operating from a spirit that is misaligned with mine, and that misalignment, when it is in close proximity to what I am building in you, creates friction, resistance, and obstruction that feels personal but is actually spiritual. The enemy uses available instruments. He places in your path the people whose wounds, insecurities, or spiritual alignments make them most useful for the obstruction of what you carry. They are not always evil people. Some of them are broken people whose own unhealed places made them susceptible to being used against you without their full awareness. That does not make the impact of their presence any less real. But it should change the way you carry what they did. Forgiveness is not my suggestion for your situation. It is my requirement. Not because what was done against you was acceptable. Not because those who operated against you deserve the release. But because unforgiveness is a chain that holds you in the vicinity of what I have already moved. When you refuse to release what someone did, you remain spiritually tethered to them even after I have physically removed them. You carry them into rooms they were never supposed to enter. You bring their influence into relationships they were never supposed to touch. You let them set the ceiling on your next season by refusing to mentally and emotionally release them from the season they just occupied. The removal I performed in the natural realm can be undermined in the spirit realm by your unwillingness to close the account. I am asking you today to do the work of full release. Not a partial, conditional, I will forgive them if they acknowledge what they did release. A full, unilateral, I am releasing this because my freedom requires it and because God asked me to release. Hand me the account. Let me be the one who settles it. And walk forward unencumbered. Type, I release them, Lord, fully and completely, if you are choosing right now to let go of what was done against you and trust God with the justice portion. Now let me speak about what comes next. Because the removal was not the conclusion of my work in this area of your life. It was the preparation for it. I do not clear the stage simply to leave it empty. I clear the stage because something is about to enter it that requires the space. And what is about to enter your life in the space created by what I removed is going to answer questions you have carried for years. It is going to fill voids you had quietly stopped believing could be filled. It is going to arrive in a form that is so specifically suited to who you are and what you need that the precision of it will feel supernatural, because it is supernatural. I designed it. I built it. I held it in reserve through the entire season when what needed to be removed was still occupying the space. And now that the space is clear, I am releasing it. The relationship I have prepared for the cleared relational space is not a lesser version of what was removed. It is not a replacement that you settle for because the original thing did not work out. It is something I specifically designed for this moment in your life, calibrated to the person you are right now, not the person you were when the previous season began. It carries safety in the places where you were most wounded by what was removed. It carries depth in the places where what was removed was most shallow. It carries a reciprocity that the previous dynamic did not, a genuine, mutual investment in each other's flourishing that you stopped believing was possible to find. Do not approach what is coming with the defensive posture that what was removed trained you to carry. Do not make the new thing pay for what the old thing did. Open your hands. Open your heart. Let the discernment I have sharpened in you through the difficult season guide you into what I have prepared, and trust that I would not clear the space with such care only to fill it carelessly. The opportunity one have prepared for the cleared professional or purposeful space is not a step sideways. It is not a consolation prize for the door that closed. It is an elevation. The position that what was removed was occupying was not the position I was designing for your destiny anyway. It was a position that, had it remained permanently, would have placed a ceiling on your potential that was far lower than what I have planned for your life. The removal did not cost you a future. It revealed one. The future you had been building toward in that direction had a ceiling built into it by the very person or structure that was occupying it. The future I am now opening before you has no such ceiling. The doors that are swinging open in the wake of this removal lead to rooms that are sized for the full expression of everything I placed inside you, not just the portion of it that what was removed was comfortable accommodating. Rise to meet it. Do not shrink down to fit a smaller version of the opportunity because the previous experience made you cautious. I am calling you upward. Move upward. My beloved, I want to speak now to the part of you that is angry. Not the part that is sad, not the part that is confused, not even the part that is hopeful about what is ahead, the part that is genuinely, legitimately angry about what was done. The part that looks at the situation clearly and feels the full heat of the injustice of it. Someone deliberately positioned themselves to obstruct your progress. Someone who knew you, who had access to your trust and your investment, chose to use that access against you rather than for you. And there is a righteous anger in you at that reality that does not need to be spiritualized away before you have felt it fully. Let it rise. Bring it before me. Do not paste a smile over the top of it and call the smile faith. Bring me the actual anger. Let me see it in its full, honest form. Because here is what I do with righteous anger that is surrendered to me rather than acted upon from a wounded place. I transform it, not into passivity or resignation. Into fuel, into a holy determination that becomes one of the most powerful forces in your forward movement. The person who was angry enough at injustice to cry out to me for vindication is a person I can use. The fire that betrayal and obstruction produced in you is not a fire I want extinguished. It is a fire I want redirected. Pointed not at the people who tried to block you, but at every obstacle, every assignment of the enemy, every spirit of limitation and inadequacy and fear that would dare to try to hold you in place from this point forward. Let the anger become your fuel. Let what they did against you become the thing that proves to you, permanently and viscerally, that you are someone worth blocking. Because the enemy only mobilizes significant resources against significant threats. The fact that you required removal rather than simple neglect tells you something profound about the level of threat your destiny represents to the kingdom of darkness. You are not an incidental target. You are a primary one. And primary targets do not have average destinies. Now hear what I am declaring over your life from this moment forward. Say this with me in your spirit as I speak it. I am no longer blocked. I am no longer held back by what was positioned against me. The obstacle that tried to permanently alter the course of my destiny has been removed by the hand of God, and in its removal, a path has been cleared that leads directly into what I was born for. I do not walk into this new season carrying the weight of what tried to stop me. I walk into it carrying only the wisdom I gained from surviving it and the fire I found in the middle of it. What was sent to destroy me became the very thing that defined me. And the one who tried to block me only succeeded in moving me into position for everything God has been preparing. The removal was not my ending. It was my launching. Speak that. Mean it. Say it out loud if you need to. Because there is creative power in declaring what I have spoken. There is a shift in the atmosphere when the words of heaven are repeated in the language of earth by the very child they were spoken over. Your agreement with what I am declaring is not just an emotional act. It is a spiritual one. It closes the door on the previous chapter with a firmness that thinking about it alone cannot accomplish. It draws a line. It says to every spiritual force watching the trajectory of your life, this child has received the word of the Lord. This child knows that what tried to block them has been removed. This child is not looking back at what was moved. This child is looking forward to what is coming. And what is coming cannot be stopped by anything the enemy still has access to. My beloved, let me close by addressing you directly as the person you have been throughout the entire season that led to this moment. Because you have not been passive in this. You have not been a helpless observer. Even in the most disorienting moments of the removal, even in the grief and the confusion and the anger and the questions that had no immediate answers, you kept doing the one thing that mattered most. You kept your hand in mine. Not perfectly. Not without struggle or doubt or the occasional moment of wondering whether I was actually managing any of this. But you did not ultimately let go. You came back. You prayed even when the prayer felt mechanical. You showed up even when showing up felt pointless. You chose, again and again, in small and unglamorous daily moments that no one was watching and no one applauded, to keep trusting me when every visible evidence suggested that trust might be unrewarded. I saw every one of those moments. I received every one of them. And I tell you now, not one of them was wasted, not one was overlooked, not one failed to reach me. Every time you chose faith when fear was easier, you were making a deposit into the account of this season. Every time you refused to let bitterness become your permanent posture, you were protecting the future I was building toward. Every time you decided to stay soft when hardness would have been more self-protective, you were keeping your heart open to receive the very things that what was removed would have made you close yourself off from permanently. Your perseverance during the delay and through the removal was not small. It was the work that qualified you for the season you are entering. Not because you earned it, but because you became someone capable of carrying it. The person who walked into the difficult season that brought you to this moment is not the same person who is walking out of it now. You are sharper. You are deeper. You are clearer about who I am and more certain about who you are in me. You carry discernment that protects what is ahead. You carry compassion that came from pain that refined rather than destroyed. You carry a testimony that is not theoretical, not borrowed from someone else's story, but forged in the furnace of your own experience and therefore yours to give in a way that no one else can duplicate. What was removed from your life contributed, despite the intentions of those who orchestrated the removal against you, to making you into the most powerful version of yourself you have ever been. The enemy overplayed his hand. He sent the opposition that produced your transformation. He authorized the removal of what was comfortable but unnecessary to create room for what was purposed and essential. He thought he was ending your story. He was editing it into something too good for him to have wanted any part of creating. Someone tried to block you. I removed them. And what I am placing in the space they left will make every day of the difficult season look, in retrospect, like the most necessary gift I ever permitted in your life. Walk forward, beloved. Walk forward clean, free, expectant, and unafraid. The path is clear. I cleared it. And I am already walking ahead of you in every direction it leads. Type Amen and declare, "What tried to block me only positioned me," in the comments if you are receiving this word today. And share this message with every person in your life who has been confused and grieving over something that left, someone that was removed, a door that closed, someone who needs to hear that God did not drop the ball. He moved the piece. On purpose. For their good. Right on time.